Imagine watching some of America's most respected retired military leaders publicly challenge the commander-in-chief's approach to national security, not behind closed doors, not through anonymous leaks, but in interviews, speeches, and public statements seen by millions. What would drive career generals, people who spent decades serving under presidents from both parties, to openly criticize a former president's military strategy? And more importantly, what does it mean for America's future if those disagreements continue to grow? Today, we're breaking down what happened, why several retired military officials have spoken out, how Trump and his supporters responded, and what the debate could mean for U.S. foreign policy moving forward. Let's get into it. For decades, one unwritten tradition in American politics has been that senior military leaders generally avoid entering partisan political debates after retirement. While retired generals are free to express personal opinions, many choose restraint because public trust in the military depends heavily on remaining above politics. But in recent years, that tradition has faced increasing pressure. Several retired generals and former national security officials have spoken publicly about concerns regarding America's global alliances, military readiness, and the country's role on the world stage. Some argued that rapid policy shifts could weaken long-standing partnerships. Others questioned whether sudden strategic changes might create uncertainty among allies. These comments quickly became headline news. Supporters of Donald Trump viewed many of these criticisms as politically motivated. Critics argued they reflected genuine concerns from experienced military professionals. The result was an unusually public debate over national security, one that extended far beyond Washington. Military leaders rarely agree on every issue. Different commanders often favor different strategies depending on their experiences and the challenges they faced during service. Some retired officials argued that maintaining strong alliances remains one of America's greatest strategic advantages. They pointed to organizations like NATO and long-standing defense partnerships across Europe and Asia. According to these voices, international cooperation helps prevent conflicts before they begin. Others expressed concern about signals sent to allies during periods of political uncertainty. They warned that even temporary confusion could encourage rival nations to test America's resolve. At the same time, supporters of Trump's approach presented a very different perspective. They argued that previous administrations allowed allies to rely too heavily on American military resources. From this viewpoint, asking partner nations to contribute more to their own defense was not abandoning alliances, it was strengthening them through shared responsibility. The disagreement wasn't necessarily about whether America should remain secure, it was about the best path to achieve that goal. Donald Trump has long argued that he prioritizes an America-first foreign policy. Throughout his presidency and political campaigns, he repeatedly questioned whether certain international agreements fairly served American taxpayers. He argued that allies should shoulder a greater share of defense costs. He also maintained that stronger negotiation tactics could reduce unnecessary overseas commitments. Following criticism from retired military officials, Trump and his supporters responded forcefully. They emphasized his administration's investments in military equipment, defense spending, and efforts to modernize the armed forces. Supporters argued that challenging long-standing policies should not automatically be viewed as weakening national security. Instead, they described it as an attempt to rethink strategies they believed had become outdated. This response further fueled public discussion across television networks, podcasts, newspapers, and social media. Americans responded in very different ways. Some viewers felt reassured hearing experienced military leaders explain their concerns. Others believed retired generals should avoid becoming active participants in political debates. Polls often show that the military remains one of America's most trusted institutions. Because of that reputation, statements from former commanders can carry significant influence. Political analysts pointed out that voters often pay close attention when respected national security figures speak publicly. However, analysts also cautioned that retired officials represent individual viewpoints rather than the official position of the U.S. military. That distinction became increasingly important throughout the debate. Media coverage also varied. Some outlets highlighted warnings raised by retired commanders. Others focused on Trump's defense of his policies and his criticism of what he viewed as Washington's political establishment. As expected, public opinion largely reflected existing political divisions. The broader question extends far beyond one individual or one election. It centers on how America should balance military strength, diplomatic relationships, and national priorities in an increasingly complex world. Future administrations, regardless of political party, will likely continue debating these same issues. How much should the United States invest overseas? How should alliances evolve? What role should diplomacy play alongside military power? And how can leaders maintain public confidence while adapting to rapidly changing global challenges? These questions have no simple answers. Experienced military leaders, elected officials, foreign policy experts, and voters often reach different conclusions based on the same set of facts. That reality is part of democratic debate. Whether viewers agree with Donald Trump, with retired military leaders, or somewhere in between, one thing is clear. America's national security discussion has become more public than ever before. Retired generals are speaking more openly. Political leaders are defending their visions more aggressively, and voters are being asked to evaluate competing ideas about the future of U.S. foreign policy. As this debate continues, decisions made in Washington could influence international relationships, defense planning, and global stability for years to come. Ultimately, informed citizens benefit from hearing multiple perspectives, examining credible evidence, and understanding the reasoning behind different policy approaches. Now, we'd like to hear from you. Do you believe retired military leaders should publicly comment on national security issues after leaving service? Or should they remain outside partisan political debates? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. If you found this analysis helpful, consider subscribing for more balanced coverage of major political and international developments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.